Apparently voters are sceptical about climate pledges and the cost, so says a poll, in the wake of Rishi Sunak announcing that he's going to basically do nothing apart from delay the ban on producing petrol and diesel cars by 5 years. 36% support this and 35% oppose it. That's according to a YouGov poll for The Times. I mean, this issue is going to dictate politics, isn't it, for the future? And it seems people are evenly split. Those who've sort of taken the Greta Thunberg red pill and decide that, you know, the world is on fire and we must do something for the sake of our children, and those who say, well, that's all very well, coming up with grandiose targets and showboating on the international stage, but we, the voters, we, the people, are going to have to carry the can for this while other big polluters are doing nada.
I'm traditional Labour on this, and I'm with Rishi Sunak in actual fact, and as opposed to Ed Miliband, who's pretty hot on this sort of topic. I think he's calling it right, and it's a complicated opinion poll, this actually. It shows us a lot, but one of the things it does show us is that Conservative voters very much back him in terms of what he's doing on this, so Rishi Sunak will get some comfort from that. I think he's called it right, pulling back from the edge. We had the Uxbridge by-election, which allowed the Tories just to hang on there. That was a vote very much against you, Les, very much about climate change. People are very despondent about these targets. They don't believe they can be achieved. That's what this opinion polls show, and I think Sunak has been right to react to that from a political perspective. He's called it right.
And the problem with this, isn't it, Matthew, is the whole topic has become a bit taboo, and it's you'd think after Rishi's announcement that he'd said he was going to go about with a can of gasoline and start setting wildfires or something.
Make oil boilers compulsory or something.
when he's actually just delayed something a little bit by 5 years.
Yeah, look, I'm somewhere between Ed Miliband and the Green Lobby and Rishi Sunak on this, and I think actually that Keir Starmer has missed a bit of a trick by not getting in earlier, because of the two main areas. One is the ban on new petrol cars. The thing about that is actually more acceptable to voters, because when it's clear, because actually nobody's going to have to change anything. It's not saying you've got to go and spend money that you wouldn't otherwise spend. It's restricting your choice about a future purchase. It's not coming into your home and telling you you've got to have something new that may not work. So and with Labour and the unions, the sort of more traditional part of the Labour Party, are more in favour of the keeping the electric vehicle target, because their members they want certainty for their members about building the cars of the future. Yeah. On the other hand, I think Labour should have got in a lot earlier on saying, look, if heat pumps don't work, let's not do a kamikaze mission of forcing people to have boilers that are 5 times the cost and don't work. But actually, we want the aim, but we'll have a proper road plan to get there. And I think at the moment, Sunak, as you say, hasn't actually done that much. I mean, I think some of the right of the Tory party are getting overexcited because he's done a little something, and they're not used to it, putting a bit of clear green water between the parties. But actually, it's a bit of a mess, and Labour should have got ahead of him on this boilers question, which is the thing that's really worrying people, isn't it, Simon?
Yes, it will be, absolutely. Yeah, you own a boiler, you've got to replace it, and there's no proper technology that people can get comfort from in terms of what you should replace it with and what the cost will be.
Do you know what I don't understand about this? It reminds me of all the sort of Brexit, the good old Brexit days, is the media reaction, obviously not on here in Talk Towers, but the media reaction to this, sort of like, jumped up and down and said, oh, car manufacturers, they're all going crazy. Ford went, well, we don't really know what we're up to. BMW went, meh, we don't really care, we're just going to crack on with our own plans. Basically, most car manufacturers were totally fine about it, and the media launched on one little statement from Ford, which just says, all we want is clarity. And I kind of think to myself, well, if you want to start making electric vehicles because you think that's where the market's going to be, crack on and do it. You don't need the Prime Minister to tell you when.
Well, they want certainty. But the problem is, because they do pan-European production, they want to have absolute certainty that they can't make petrol cars and diesel cars for Britain and electric vehicles for the rest of Europe.
But then we've come in line with the rest of Europe. You'd think they'd say, oh, that's quite useful.
We're not being,
and also put a sock in it, Ford, because they took an EU grant to move their transit van production out of the UK to Europe, so they can jog on.
I agree, and sometimes you don't need to listen to big business on every occasion. I agree with that. The point that links these two stories together is the fact that the political story is that Sunak's come back off holiday and he's trying to change the mood music, and so these two big stories, HS2 is trying to change and changing the climate change targets, are big stories that he's trying to show he's in charge and is going to make a difference before before the
And
general
it was
election.
so education, him wanting to get rid of the A levels, plus the smoking ban for kids today as well.
Someone's put something funny on his cornflakes because he's suddenly become a policy machine, hasn't he? He's like just suddenly gone.
And this is before the conference. They'll be saving some ammunition for the conference.
It's like literally in the space of 24 hours, he's sort of, changing laws on smoking. He's getting rid of A levels. He's reversing net zero. He's, I'm like, calm down, lad. Calm
It'll be
down.
interesting to see if it has an impact, though, in terms of the opinion polls.
Yeah, and I think they think this is their last roll of the dice, and I think it makes a May election more likely that they're because they want the policies to be out there, but they don't want them to have to actually start implementing them before the election. They wouldn't be able to get very far, but at least if they have an election in May, they could say this is our agenda. It's about setting out that agenda, and as Simon says, it's about it's about trying to put a wedge between. But I would say that politically there isn't a whole narrative here, that dreadful word they use in politics. I.e., what's the story the party's telling?
Yeah, no big vision.
There's no big vision because you've got
random.
It's yes, we're going to support the Red Wall by we're going to save your boiler, but on the other hand, we're not going to give you the fast train to connect you. So it's mixed messaging, and that's the worst thing you want in politics. So you sometimes need to be careful that you don't that in all this kind of spew of new ideas, you don't lose the big picture.
But I don't think Starmer's doing much better on that. And I wrote a piece for Business Leader magazine this week about Starmer cozying up to Europe, going to see Macron. That's not going to appeal to Red Wall.
No, absolutely.
Starmer went over to Montreal. We were talking about this the other day. Went over to Mr. Laza's favourite conference that he used to organise in Montreal, the coalition of the lefties, whatever it is. And
that's my idea of a good holiday.
I know, but we're going to be talking about what you two have been up to in a bit.
In our youth.
In your youth. But he goes over to Canada, doesn't he? And he says to the audience there that we're not going to diverge from EU regulation. He comes back and goes, oh, no, not joining the single market. We're very keen on Brexit. And I'm like, do you honestly think the internet doesn't exist and that your comments at this conference aren't going to be reported back at home?
It was live streamed.
He gave the best ammunition to the Tories to whack that on the front page of the Daily Mail, get everyone in the Red Wall hot under the collar.
He ties his immigration policy to the European Union in terms of a fair share of taking illegal immigrants, and everybody then worries that we're going to have to take over 100,000 more than we currently are doing, and the dependence of the European Union. And then, as you say, he's cozying up to Macron, making speeches about the EU. Why he's doing any of that?
Well, I don't think he wants to be Prime Minister, does he? As far as I can tell, he wants someone else to do the job for him and say, what should be in the manifesto? Oh, please tell me Trudeau, please tell me EU.
They've had a tricky week, and I've been looking again at all the pictures, and Justin Trudeau's selection of jazzy jackets, which I experienced, is something to behold. Absolutely. I think Simon's absolutely right. The messaging on this needs to be so careful, because the truth of the matter is, what Keir's in danger of is he's going to keep nobody happy, because although he may have shown a bit of leg to the international crowd at the Montreal conference, and the same with Macron, when it comes to Britain, the manifesto will be clear: no rejoining the EU, no rejoining the single market, no rejoining joining the customs union, and so that's going to disappoint the kind of liberal voters who are in some ways Labour's core vote, and it used to be that Labour had the core working class vote and had to add on the liberal middle classes, and now it's the other way around. And so he needs to be careful he's not keeping anybody happy.